Hi, everybody. Chris here with StackedPoker.net, bringing you the very first ever podcast episode 1 with my man, Vince Curry. Now, Vince, I have a really, really good memory of you. Just to give a little background to our viewers, I was in Vegas. I go there every year to meet with some high school buddies and do a reunion. I was there a few hours before them, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go kill some time. I'm going to go play some 1-2 no limit at Golden Nugget of all places. Shout out Golden Nugget. I sat there for a little while, and the game was okay. There's a couple guys in there donating. So Vince, to let everybody know, was sitting just to my left. We've been playing together for, what do you think, like an hour maybe?
Probably about an hour and 15 minutes or so.
Okay. And you know, we're both doing okay. I could tell Vince knew what he was doing. He wasn't a total fish like a couple of the guys at the table. God bless him. But I did, in the middle of a hand, Vince just comes out and says, yeah, I remember when I played this, Jamie Gold was a couple $100,000. I was like, wait a minute, what? I folded my hand. I pretty much sat out the next few hands listening to his story. So I'm going to kind of jump in. If I remember right, you're ex-military?
Yes.
Okay, I do remember that. What branch did you serve in?
Served in the Army.
Thank you very much for your service, sir.
Appreciate it.
You have such a cool story. I just kind of want to jump in. Out of nowhere, you hit me with, yeah, I played this pot for a couple $100,000 with Jamie Gold one time. And we're playing a limit game right now. And I just looked at him and said, what? So why don't you take us back a little even before that? Like, how much poker experience did you have before you even got to that point?
To be honest, that was really my first live in a casino poker session. That weekend, I really hadn't, I played home games, played with my guys some home games and things of that nature. But so this was the first time I actually went out to play. So I was in Vegas for an actual construction loan meeting. And so we just began to, what ended up happening is I set up for a 10-20 table. This is back when the Venetian had the parlor before they gutted it out and made it one expansive room. And so in the middle of the room, they set up the 10-20 table. They called 3 or 4 players. I went, only had $4,000, and no one was showing up. So this European kid came up and he's like, hey, let's play heads up so they don't shut the table down. So fine. So 3 hands later, he was felted. Now I have $8,000. So then another kid comes, he rebuys. This kid gets felted. Now I've got $9,000. Next kid, and before you know it, after 45 minutes or so, I've got $16,000, starting with 4. And so then they move us to the parlor. We get to the parlor, and so we come up with this brilliant idea. The brilliant idea was, we're 9-handed. Every time you win the pot, we were putting a shot of Southern Comfort in the pot. So when you win the pot, you do the shot. And every time we got a new player, the entire table did a shot.
Oh,
this went on for, I would say, 8.5 hours. And I'm up.
I'd be under the table.
So I'm up this point to about $56,000.
Oh,
and in walks Jamie Gold, some oil guy named Bob Wright, who I don't know, and then another guy as well. And I just look at him and I'm like, okay, that's Jamie Gold. So I'm gonna play one hand just so I can say I played with Jamie. So I'm sitting in the big blind, and Jamie buys in for 100. His buddy buys in for 100K, and the old man buys in for 100K. So I sit there and I get my cards. I get 2 red aces in the big blind, and in my head, just like every other poker player, this is not good. Okay, so I get the 2 red aces in the big blind. So the next thing that happens is, under the gun, he bets everyone comes in, it gets back around to me. It's $3,600 to go. Hey, I'm in. I'm not raising. I got two aces. I'm thinking now I'm being smart and I'm going to slow play this. And, I don't, at the time, you have to understand, this is my first live event. I had no idea that that's like the absolute wrong move to make. So I flat it, and the flop comes 8 of spades, deuce of spades, 8 of diamonds. And small blind checks. I look at the pot, it's like 27 grand. I'm like, okay, let's see where we're at. 5,800 to go. Full. Before this guy's cards are mud, Jamie goes 19,000. And here's the rest of the table. Call. And the old man, Bob Wright, shoves his 100 grand and goes, I'm all in. Now, mind you, again, I'm new. I completely forget, probably because of the alcohol, that I'm playing with millionaires.
Right.
And so here's this Vince logic. If you're playing an 8 or a deuce in your hand pre-flop, you're going to have to beat me. I call. And that's exactly what I announced at the table. The entire table folds. And I look at the old man, and he looks at me, and I said, well, I've got aces. The old man looks at me and goes, son, you're going to take down the pot. He turns over 3-4 offsuit on a stone cold bluff with $100,000. And that is how my poker life began. 100%.
That's a pretty amazing beginning. I will say that. Get a guy bluffing off 100 grand into you. I mean,
yeah,
that was your first.
Well, what I realized was that, they spent I immediately racked up. They spent about an hour trying to talk me into a private game and up in the room and that. And so I realized after that is that the old man had given Jamie and the other guy the money to buy in with, and they were going to run the table.
Of course.
And, I didn't know. The problem is they ran into a blooming idiot that doesn't know anything about poker. This is his first time playing. And I've got liquid stones. So that's how my weekend and poker life began. And that was the most fruitful weekend. My total take for that weekend was a little over $600,000.
That is just amazing. That was the first time ever. Okay, so that's just amazing. I mean, most people's first time in a live casino, they're playing like 1-2 no limit, hoping to win 100 or 2, and your first time in and that was at the Venetian, right?
That was at the Venetian.
Shout out to the Venetian. All right.
Oh, absolutely.
So
and the next morning was the one that was really insane. It was absolutely crazy.
All right, tell us about it.
Well, I had taken the 100, of course, took all cash, and I went to Tao and just hung out for the evening. So I left about 90 grand in the safe in the room, and I took the rest down to the table, and I decided I was going to play again. And my objective was to play with $5,000 or $10,000. The rest was just leave me alone money, so I'm not going to be pushed around.
Right.
And so I get on this table, and so I had a plan, and my plan was a script right out of Poker Stars. I'm going to sit. I'm going to straddle on the button. I'll buy the pot so they know I'm willing to risk, and I'm just going to take it down, and then I can play. And now I'm not drinking. So I had this all planned out of how this was going to go. And so I was sitting there very stoic, had my hat on, had my glasses on, and I'm just sitting there. And so I sit there. I finally get the button. I straddle, get the cards, don't look at them, put my military coin on top, never touch the cards. And so these guys are betting, and it comes around to me, and I just keep my head down, never engage, and I go 6,800 to go. I get 6 callers, and I haven't looked at my cards. I'm like, okay. So here comes the flop, 4-4 deuce. And there's a bet, there's a call, there's another call, there's another call. One of the guys dumps, and it gets to me, and I go 18,250. And I'm just randomly just making up numbers that I think that these guys will fold to. And everyone calls. And then I'm like, now I'm really beside myself because I just threw away $27,000 and got nothing to show for it. And they already know that I haven't looked at my cards.
Right.
And then I take my cards and I peek and I put them back down and I just shake my head to the side. And these guys are betting, and it comes around to me, and I go, I don't have a choice. I'm all in. And they're looking at me like, that's like 50 grand. And they're looking at me like, this is not, he hadn't even looked at his cards. He's playing, he's trying to, they figured out what I was doing. Well, unbeknownst to them, everyone called. I turned over my hand. I had deuce for a spades, and I flopped the joint. That pot was like 400 grand, and that's the first hand I played. And it was my first live poker weekend. Almost $600,000, and that was the whole weekend. And after that, I thought I was poker god.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So
I think after all that happened, didn't you make a move to Europe or something?
Well, I moved to Vegas, played poker for 4 years, and I moved to London and played on the European Poker Tour for a year. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I took a 5-year vacation, a little 5-year sabbatical.
Why not? People are just donating 600,000 to you. You started with 4,000, so pretty good, man.
It was really, really good though, because before I left, I got the biggest lesson that I ever learned in poker in another single hand where I actually was able to fold out. And I folded out because it didn't make sense. We're at another 10-20 table later that afternoon, and I get Jack 6 of diamonds in the blind, and the flop comes 6-6 Jack. And here I am thinking I'm trapping everybody. And these 3 or 4 guys are just going along for the ride. And I'm looking at the board. You got a flush. There's no straight flush. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, a couple of chasers, but this one guy was just, he never raised. He never did. He flatted. And then when we get to the river, I check out of position. I check, and he shoves. And I just look at this guy, and I've got 57 grand in the pot. And I look at the guy and I go, this just doesn't make sense. This doesn't, and I take my hand and I open muck him. I just turn him over and I go, I fold. And the guy goes one time and he turns over pocket jacks. And that's when I learned how to play poker, because I learned how to fold. And that was the biggest lesson I could have ever learned. And I've saved quite a bit of money because he had even money with me, because, he'd have taken $150,000. But in my opinion, I got away cheap, and everyone thought I was crazy, but the hand didn't make sense.
Amazing story. When you started telling me this story sitting at a 1-2 table, I was like, excuse me, you did what now? And I was just amazed when you kept talking, because the more you talked, the better the story got. And you told me about going to Europe, playing on the EPT. What are you doing these days? I know something with a card, right?
Well, I'm actually my son tricked me into getting a job, because I was still playing poker. I teed off every morning at 6:30 and played poker from 11 to 2. That was my job. My son goes, Dad, I was divorced, and he goes, Dad, I want to move back to Texas and play football. And I was like, fine. Uprooted my life, took this job. I'm the finance director. My degree is in accounting, so took this job as a finance director at a Maserati dealership. He has since left, and believe it or not, he's at UNLV in school. So, and I still have this job in the house that I bought to bring in here. So,
Right. Real nice. What part of Texas are you in?
the Woodlands, a little north of Houston.
Okay, because I'm going to be down that way. I'm taking a 2-week trip through Texas pretty soon. Visit all the card rooms I haven't been to yet. Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. Won't even shout out because there's so many of them I'm going to hit. But I'd definitely give you a call when I'm down that way. I wouldn't mind going to dinner or something.
Oh man, awesome! I'd love to get out of the play. Here I now still I fly to Vegas about 5 times a year to play, and I probably once a month I scoot over to the little Golden Nugget there in Lake Charles, Louisiana, to get a game in. It's just kind of hard to find good games on this side.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, Vince. The story is awesome. For my first ever podcast episode, I want everybody to know we will interview big name pros, but we're also going to interview the everyday player that just has a really cool story, man, and you qualify.
Hey, I definitely appreciate the invite. I look forward to it.
All right, Vince, check us out. Everybody else, the podcast is going to be called The Deal. This is the first one. And the website you're going to find that on, along with YouTube, is stackedpoker.net. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.